Hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. An easy one tonight because Rush Hour is a film of my heart, or at least a defining film of my childhood, which is a strange thing to say considering Rush Hour was probably not, and its subsequent sequel, Rush Hour 2, although less so Rush Hour 3, I think I'd aged out of it. They're not necessarily films that you would think would appeal to a to someone of my age at the time. However, I don't know if it is because, of course, I was a huge fan of Jackie Chan growing up. I don't know if it's because it seemed cool, but also funny. Maybe it's the chemistry between Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. I just grew up with it, with a love of that story and those characters. I suppose on some level, because I was too young for the Lethal Weapon crowd, and I was too young for sort of like Beverly Hills Cop. Rush Hour was the next evolution of that type of storytelling, and then of course we went into the Ocean's films, which again I grew up having a great love for. And so, I mean, on one level, I wish I could say that it influenced me massively, and now I love action comedies and buddy cops. Honest truth, I don't particularly. I like action comedies sometimes, and the buddy cop genre I think is a tricky one because, frankly, I think it's very based upon it's very defined upon the people who are working together. You know, in this case, Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, I think, just had such a great chemistry. And on some level, I would say the same about Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson from the Shanghai films. I think, again, really great chemistry, and there was just a really good dynamic. Of course, going back, like I said, Riggs and Murtaugh with Lethal Weapon, you do get these great pairings. If you can find two actors who just have the right chemistry together, it can produce magic. However, again, the buddy cop genre isn't one that particularly interests me. I've talked before about how, I don't know, police drama, police comedies, police dramas, police-centred stories aren't ones that I'm particularly interested in. They're not the kind of mysteries that I find engaging. In fact, the funny thing about Rush Hour is I find the plot, I did as a kid and I do as an adult, find that the plot that is going on exceptionally tedious. There's no real mystery to it. It because it doesn't really give you a sense of, oh, it could be any one of these people. And when you find out who is behind the kidnapping of the diplomat's daughter, on one level it's, well, there was no way to sort of foreshadow that other than the obvious. And on the other hand, it was obvious. It's like, well, in terms of plotting, it could only be this character because this is the only character who you have set up in that position. And yeah, I distinctly as a kid remember finding that side of things boring. As an adult, I find it trite and not particularly interesting plotting. And as I say, I don't really think the buddy cop genre often... I don't think the sort of detective or police comedies of the 80s and 90s were particularly interested in their actual mysteries. They were interested in the comedy. As I said yesterday with Cemetery Junction, there is this constant play between comedy, drama, melodrama. You get this sense of, okay, in Rush Hour's case, it is a comedy first. Therefore, it's not as interested in the plot. It's interested in setting up comedic premises. Now, in this case, it's not an out-and-out comedy like something like Zoolander or Anchorman, but it's on the level that every scene is either working to build our characters or sort of flesh out the sort of environment around them. But ultimately, it's there to service the comedy, and the comedy being either Chris Tucker, Jackie Chan, or Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan bouncing off each other. And I don't know, there's, like I say, there's just something about them together. I mean, the funny thing about Chris Tucker is the fact that this and Fifth Element, he's not really a. I grew up thinking that Chris Tucker was a huge comedy movie actor. And it's only sort of as I got older and sort of looked at his career that I realised, oh, he wasn't really. Chris Tucker is ultimately a stand-up comedian first, and then just wanted to go into films, and this sort of came at the right time. But beyond Rush Hour and Fifth Element, Chris Tucker wasn't hugely a big Hollywood actor. But here it works so well. He has this natural energy to him. He really suits his environment. There are moments. It's interesting, the nature of memory and watching something as a child, because there are things that I remember very different to how they play out in the film. For instance, I mean, the absolute primary example is the timing and pacing of it. Because watching this now, this just rattled on so quickly. This film it's only 90-ish minutes, but the pace is so quick, and I don't remember it being a particularly quick-paced film. There are certain plot beats and character arcs and moments that I thought were stretched out significantly longer than they actually are. And it might just be my enjoyment of it, because you don't even really get Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan together until half an hour in. And yet, that first half hour just rattles by, and it doesn't feel like it's taking, like the setup is taking too long. And just there are certain moments, the thing about Jackie Chan not being able to speak, or seeming to not be able to speak English, and sort of the comedy of that, the third act breakup and the resolution of that, the backstory of certain characters. I seem to remember that Chris Tucker's dad's character, it was revealed that Chris Tucker's dad's character was a traffic cop. But on this viewing, I realised, he's not he was a detective. It's just he was in a traffic-based situation that causes the tragedy that sort of informs Chris Tucker's character. And there are just moments that just honestly these things rattle on so quickly, and the film is so fast-paced that by the time you get to the climax, I don't feel like the film is outstaying its welcome. Of course, this might be, and I'm not 100% sure because I haven't looked too deeply into it, but if it's not Jackie Chan's English language debut, it's at least Jackie Chan's Hollywood, sort of his introduction to the era of Jackie Chan that we then go on to see with the Rush Hour films, the Shanghai films, the Tuxedo, the sort of prevailing, the preceding decade that would be Jackie Chan sort of dominating the box office for a while. And it's great. Jackie Chan is phenomenal. I mean, if I'm right, and this is the introduction of him to Hollywood, just watching him being able to do his drunken master style, perfectly interweaving sort of him being sort of the fish out of water, particularly with the bar scene where he drops a misunderstanding leads to him dropping a slur that leads to him having a fairly comedic fight scene. And I don't know, and it's just great to see him. I mean, Jackie Chan, of course, his style, his martial arts, his choreography is just so watchable. And of course, people have told me over years that if you watch things like his Police Story films, or any of the huge filmography from non-English language films, that he defined a certain era of martial arts and storytelling, and his combat style is distinct and genre defining. And again, it's just watching it here it's magic. It reminds me of how much I liked seeing Jackie Chan, and the fluidity and the sort of almost clumsiness of his combat style, the sort of improvisational nature of it. It's so good on camera, and it's a shame because again, there is this fear that I have that we constantly make two steps forward, one step back, where it comes to choreography and film combat, particularly in Hollywood. As I mentioned in the Mortal Kombat video, that just the nature of modern editing and storytelling does not lend itself to portraying good martial arts, or the style that, martial arts as it should be represented, as it is represented in sort of more the Eastern filmmaking styles. And it's a shame, because it is phenomenal and beautiful to see. It's like dancing. And of course, like I say, the Jackie Chan Chris Tucker thing is just wonderful. There are just so many countless reference moments, particularly the war sequence, which is just so funny. And like I say, they just build this natural chemistry that isn't always like you have the combative nature of the first act, and then the sort of the transition to sort of a friendship in the second act, and they just work so well together. Hence, 2 sequels with them, because they just have, there's just something about their styles that interweave so well. And it's just a fun film. It is so fun, and like I say, it's definitely a film of my nostalgia that I remember loving and watching it back. I'm so glad that it hasn't deteriorated with age. That actually, it's still, there's just something about it that's fun, action filled, and just great. It's just a great sit. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment below, and share the video, because it's all helping the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell to get notifications of when new videos are uploaded. Check out my back catalogue of over 250 videos, and follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I tweet about TV shows and films, and I share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.